they're not butted together. Most of the stuff you see is butted together, but they're actually riveted together. So you have a ring and a rivet that holds the ring closed, because that makes the rings not, split apart whenever you spear them or something like that. It's the anti-stabbing portion of it, which is why when you see a lot of reproduction stuff, it'll fly apart a lot easier because it's just butted together. Which, going into that allegory, it's interesting to see that just adding a little piece of metal into a connection will strengthen the connection so much more. Adding a third piece into whatever connection you have with two other ends will strengthen the connection so much more. So, for example, a marriage or a friendship or something like that, Jesus can connect that and make it so much stronger than it was before. Hello, and welcome to the People with People podcast, where we talk with people about people-y people things. Today I'm joined by my good friend Jerry, and Rob is back again. He's been, I think he was on the one with Stanley, who's been on a couple too. Anyway, he's there. You'll find him. And today I'm very excited to have both of you, and I'm happy that I can get more and more people interested in this. So Jerry, you are a college student currently.
That is correct.
And Rob, you are now a campus minister of sorts?
Yes, sir.
And that wasn't the case last time you were here?
Last time I was here, I was taking one class to finish my kinesiology degree. And it was funny because I was taking physics. But now God has called me into full-time campus ministry. And now I'm in the process of gathering a partnership team in order to fulfill the call and be able to be full-time on the campus.
Cool. Yes, it's very nice. Also, I'll announce stuff at the end of the video, but there's an Instagram account for the podcast now. It's the name of the podcast. I don't know if I capitalized it yet or not, but it's the name of the podcast. You can look that up. Anyway, so here's some interesting things that I normally get inspiration from Facebook or general school subjects. School is a really good conversation starter sometimes. For example, we talked a lot about Moby Dick last time, which I'm done with reading now. Goodness. And now I'm actually enjoying the paper I get to write on it, because the paper I have pulled up here is biblical references in Moby Dick, which is exciting because that means I get to do Bible study as school.
It's interesting.
And I have a list of things, and basically all the paper is right now, I haven't finished it yet, but all it is talking about general characteristics that are the same, because a lot of character names are taken from the Bible, like Ishmael, Ahab, Elijah, are all characters in Moby Dick and characters in the Bible. And just sort of pointing out different character flaws or virtues that are similar, story arcs that are similar to story arcs in the Bible involved in those characters sometimes. So, for example, the story of Jonah is in the book, is cited as a story that goes along with this story. And so it's really cool to look at all the stuff. And while I was beginning to write the book, I had this really interesting revelation, I guess, which is Moby Dick references a lot of literary culture. Like the Bible, it references Dante's Inferno, the Iliad, a bunch of old books. But I realized that basically what he's doing is he's inserting memes, sort of. So all the references are common knowledge things that are either humorous or provide insight into something, sort of like the way memes and general internet quotes do. And it was cool to see that culture does what the internet does naturally. The internet has just sped that up a lot.
Yeah.
So, for example, common culture references for the literary world would be things like the Bible for Europe, literary references like the Inferno and all the stuff that he's referencing. It's just cool to see that that still happens on a grander scale, and it helps you sort of conceptualize how weird the internet is.
That is true. I'm thinking back to when I read Moby Dick, which feels like 45 million years ago. But no, I had to read Moby Dick, and then we watched the movie. And like everybody else, I watched the movie and only read like half the book because I can get that information in an hour and a half. And so immediately I thought about the Jonah reference that you mentioned, because there's like the preacher preaching at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he was going on about, but he was giving somebody the word. He was trying to preach the house down. And I just think about that as like how God was talking to Jonah in the beginning. And then he was like, "But I'm finna get on this boat and go to Tarsus. I'm going somewhere else. I'm not going to Nineveh." So yeah, that was like the first thought I got about it.
Yeah. And do you have any knowledge of Moby Dick at all besides the general tropes?
I have not read Moby Dick, but I have seen the movie. But it's been since I think 1983.
Oh, okay. So
Since
you
I've
saw
watched
that
it.
movie.
1983.
Wasn't even born yet. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You saw the Moby Dick where the whale is like just a big blob that moves on screen and hammers stuff.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah.
it's like Godzilla in water. If he was
Right.
a pale Godzilla.
I think that's basically what the story is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Only with a lot more whaling facts.
Whaling facts.
It'd be like
true.
Godzilla if Godzilla were a giant alligator and everyone studying him just randomly went into spouts of knowledge about alligators.
Yeah, like I mean, was there like whale school or like how did they have all this now? I mean, there was whaling that was a popular thing.
Yeah, it was called cytology. And that's what the book references it as.
See,
The study of cytology is the study of whales.
reading the book, you would have got that. Watching movie, never got that part. See,
No, because that's like a useless word.
There's
and
a
that's what I
difference.
thought when I read the book too. Was like, I
That's
get
so handy.
you're sounding smart, but I don't need to know this to enhance the story. Because the story is a Godzilla story.
essentially,
To enhance the story, you need to blow something up, pretty much.
basically.
Then again, Michael Bay wasn't around when Herman Melville wrote Moby Dick, so
True.
I have to know that name for the paper, so I have to reference it all the places. But the Bible, I love getting to read the Bible to write papers. It's refreshing.
I'm thinking about what other great books do you read in school that you could have applied the Bible to? Right.
The Inferno.
Yeah. True.
Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes.
Chronicles of Narnia. Yes.
I
Anything
really
with
wish
C.S.
that was
Lewis.
a school assignment, but I've read those.
That is one book I have read, almost all of it. I don't think I've read all of any book in the world. I'm not a big book reader.
I'm trying to remember. I have consumed the knowledge of a lot of books. I've only like read through a couple of books. The one that I remember reading through all the way was a book called Target Earth. And another one that I read through all the way was Ben Franklin's autobiography, funnily enough, which was a school assignment. But Target Earth was actually a really good book. I read a amended version, but Target Earth was a book that was initially written by, and it was under a different name. It was written by the person who wrote Pilgrim's Progress. And so Target Earth is about, the entire thing is an allegory for the human soul, and it pictures the soul as a city. And so souls are either waving the flag at the king or not, basically. And so it shows the dualities and all the different natures of persons inside the city and the defenses. So, like, there is a bunch of gates around the city that people can enter the city. Like, one is eyes, taste, touch, smell, the general senses. There are like 6 gates.
Sure.
Okay.
And so the beginning is the city being like completely neutral, atheistic in a way. And it's just sort of a city that's sitting around not doing anything. And then the gospel comes and impacts the city. And then the devil comes and flips the city back around. And then the coolest part, and this is the climax of the book, is Jesus comes with a bunch of armies to liberate the city. But he doesn't liberate the city until the city invites him to liberate the city. Basically, because that's sort of how it is Jesus is there, ready to do what he knows is best thing for the person, and he's waiting for the person to acknowledge that it's actually the best thing to happen. And it was really interesting to me. The section that I enjoyed, sort of, was the devil forges his own armor. So you have the armor of God, and then the devil has his own armor set that he gives to people, like the helmet of dull-mindedness, the shoes of unrest, things like that.
Indeed. Go ahead.
Bad hearing, bad eyesight, bad thought process. Bad. It's bad. The entire thought process are bad. But it was really interesting to see the conceptualization of the anti-armor of God, basically.
That's a dope. I mean, that's a cool concept to think about. Except for it's actually like almost a real concept. I mean, we don't think about it as, put on the armor of Satan, but essentially, when we don't put on our armor, that's like the alternative to put on.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up and actually list off the. Well, I found the armor of God. That was quick. No, that's not it. But it was cool to see the concept there, and it really does sort of wake you up to see if you're wearing any of those pieces of armor.
Right. Because usually you're focused on making sure you're wearing armor.
Yeah.
But then at this point, you have to be sure what armor you're wearing.
Yeah. Well, and you can mix and match armor sets too.
You can.
You can have the belt of truth, but would be wearing the shoes of unrest or something like that.
That would be ridiculous. Like if you had the helmet of dull-mindedness, but like the shield of faith. I mean, like it's almost like they combat each other.
Yeah. Like the armor set doesn't work well together. For anyone who's familiar with armor sets, it would be like wearing a breastplate with a Roman legionary helmet, and then mix and matching that with hoplite greaves.
Yeah, when that wouldn't work too well.
No, it doesn't. It protects.
Yeah.
It doesn't protect well. It's sort of because the pieces aren't made to fit together. The hoplite greaves don't protect any of the upper legs. The breastplate doesn't mesh well with the helmet because the cheek guards get in the way and run into the cuirass. I think that's how you say it. Cuirass is how I've heard it pronounced. So, anyway,
Never even heard of the name until right now. Is there like a parallel to the sword that the enemy has?
The sword, I do not remember. The sword of the Necronomicon. I don't know. That's Cthulhu, but it's very similar. Let's see if I can pull this. Well, here's the definition of Satan. Targets of Satan.
He needed a definition.
The definition, Satan means adversary. There's a lot of other words that are not coming to mind right now. Oh, hey, plate armor. Cool. I didn't need that. Anyway, Google's not cooperating with me on that front. But it was cool to think about just how unuseful armor can be, even though you're still wearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Food for thought, man. But, and this is why I am now starting to keep a Bible handy near it. Never mind. I actually have that pulled up. Armor of God. Because I'm forgetting those two.
Can we name all the pieces without looking it up?
Go for it, Jerry.
Oh, I always forget at least one.
Yep.
All right.
Shoes a piece.
Oh, I always start top down.
Okay.
Oh, let's try bottom up. Shoes a piece. There is the belt of truth, breastplate of righteousness. Not the blessed plate. I mean, God bless my plate, but we're talking about a breastplate. There is the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the spirit. Did I miss one?
No, you good.
I think you got it, yeah.
Because yesterday I could not name all 9 gifts, so I was like, I need to step it up.
Armor of God. We can make sure. Oh, hey, there's a Wikipedia article. Alrighty. This is why I need to actually look stuff up beforehand. I need to get actual topics before I start the podcast. I need to work on that. See, things to improve on, things to improve on. You can always be improving on things to a degree. Sometimes when you improve on things, they turn out worse, though, I've found out. Like, for example, improving on this paper, sometimes I'll think, well, that reads weird, and then I fix it and it reads even weirder. You try so hard to avoid a certain word that word just becomes so blatantly what you were trying to use.
True, yeah, like you try to get away from using I in every sentence,
Yeah.
so you use another word 45 times.
Yeah. One can assume blah, 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 this is not how I talk. One could think this, one could think that. I think this.
One or the self must think this. I was
Yeah.
like, I had a friend who used the self in his entire paper. Like, that's just a strange way to say I.
It becomes more and more awkward each time.
Yeah, just let me roll with the self.
But yeah, I'm thinking on what other, because I'm thinking about armor, and I know I've told you some of my thoughts on the armor of God before, because it was interesting. I enjoy studying medieval histories, and especially swords, armor, stuff like that, applications of how to use them, because I feel like studying those things, since they're referenced in the Bible in a spiritual way, if you study how they're used in the carnal way, it'll help you understand a bit of how it's working in the spiritual realm as well. For example, one of the things is you'll find in later, like 16th century armors that they don't carry a shield with them at all because they don't need it anymore, which was interesting to think of the application. So what happened, and this is the technological progression, is you have like the Roman soldier. That's what Paul's referencing when he does the armor of God. You have shield, big tower shield, a nice sword. You have your knives, your spears, which he doesn't mention because there's not a great equivalent. And then, helmet, shoes, belt. The belt was an important thing that I was happy that he mentioned, because the belt is actually the sustaining piece of armor to help lighten the load of the rest of armor.
Yeah.
Right.
The reason why the belt is there to support the weight of the lorica. Either one, that's the Latin word for armor. I believe specifically chest armor of a type. There's lorica hamata, which is the chainmail stuff. And they haven't been able to conclude what the the metal banded one was actually called, but the standing term for now is lorica segmentata, because it's segmented ribbons of steel or iron. And you move from that, and then you move into the first, cavaliers and things like that, where they're wearing just chainmail, which is these little tiny rings. They're not butted together. Most of the stuff you see is butted together, but they're actually riveted together. So you have a ring and a rivet that holds the ring closed, because that makes the rings not, split apart whenever you spear them or something like that. It's the anti-stabbing portion of it, which is why when you see a lot of reproduction stuff, it'll fly apart a lot easier because it's just butted together. Which, going into that allegory, it's interesting to see that just adding a little piece of metal into a connection will strengthen the connection so much more. Adding a third piece into whatever connection you have with two other ends will strengthen the connection so much more. So, for example, a marriage or a friendship or something like that, Jesus can connect that and make it so much stronger than it was before.
Good.
Come on, yeah.
And that's just armor.
That's
That's just how rings are formed. But again, it's just stuff that you think about when you research these things a bit more. And you move from chainmail into the full steel plate, so you're moving back to the Roman a bit, but it's more fully formed. But when that starts coming back, shields are made smaller and smaller and smaller until they're not used at all. And this is because what you're wearing protects you so much already that you don't need to be carrying something to hold in front of you to protect yourself anymore. And spiritually, the way that can be conceptualized is because what happens is as you grow in God, as your truth, peace, all those armor pieces become more and more strong in the Lord, the need for the shield of faith becomes engrafted into the rest of the pieces.
Yeah.
So the shield of faith, your faith fuels your truth, your salvation, all sorts of things, and
Sure.
it strengthens the protection of all the other pieces, so much so that it's almost not even a part of the armor set anymore, because it's a part of everything in you already.
Yeah.
Or on you in this case.
Because I've only known... I mean, I think about that now, thinking about how the Romans used the shield. Because I know the sword is the offensive weapon.
Yeah.
Also, the shield was an offensive weapon.
It was.
And also, the Romans were really known for like getting together in groups and like shield protecting themselves. So essentially, like make walls of shields. Like 4 or 5 people get together and make a shield wall. And so when all the darts were fired, when all the arrows were out, and they were trying to reload, that was their chance to attack and move forward.
Yeah.
Because they've already all the arrows are just in their shields, and now they're using that, and they actually would stab people with the opposite end of the arrow.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's interesting. But now they just engrafted into the shield. You don't even have to do that. You can still stand together in faith and still have that same effect.
And yes, and the amazing thing, and this was something I didn't realize for a long time, was what not having to carry a shield allowed people to do on the battlefield was carry a bigger weapon.
True.
So, instead of having like the 4-foot long gladius and like the 5-foot tower shield, you could use the big 2-handed swords that you see in a lot of museums now.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have to carry your faith with you. Your faith came with you. Instead, your faith is already on you.
That's good.
Instead of having to pick it up. And so that, spiritually, again, that means that as your faith becomes engrafted into your armor, your sword of the Spirit becomes so much more effective.
True.
The range becomes more effective, the cutting power, the stab, it's a better weapon all in all, as everything improves over time. And it's cool to see how when technology progresses, how the biblical references still can apply to it. It makes sense.
So with the technological progression, does that mean we have spiritual sniper rifles now? Because that's about the biggest weapon we got, you know?
You could, I guess. I haven't thought about that before.
I mean, I was just following the line. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have, like, spiritual, drone strikes, but...
I mean, I guess that's sort of what intercession is.
I'm about to say, intercession is literally drone strikes.
Definitely.
Because
Yeah,
you can be
air
in
strikes.
here interceding over Canada, and Canada getting lit up by the drones, bro. Like,
And it's a really interesting subject, too, because that means that... So this was something I was thinking about on Men's Sunday last week, was the idea of the spiritual Spartan, which... I was thinking of a different Spartan than, like, the historical Spartan. I was thinking of, like, Halo Spartans and ODSTs and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I was thinking about that, and I went, every single saved person and every single non-saved person has the potential, spiritually, to be like Master Chief.
Mm-hmm.
That is the potential of influence that they have, being a child of God.
Yeah.
Is they have the power to come in and completely wreck shop anywhere in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so conceptualizing that is so reassuring, especially for intercessors, is because you can envision yourself being that. And so that really brings your faith and confidence up a lot in Jesus, because you know that that's why they're scared, is because now all these people are walking around with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just a bunch of Jesus walking around. And Jesus was scary enough when there was one of them.
When there was one. I mean, so like, I think...
Potential.
I think the idea of like Halo and Master Chief, how they have like the shield over them that's kind of invisible, like that. I think that's a better concept for me.
Yeah,
it's better to visualize the shield, like it's just it's a part of you, and so therefore you can dual wield now. Man, you can have the dual wield, automatic rifles, or the pistol and the sword. Just useful. Plasma grenades. I don't know. Well, what is that? Is that I'm trying to find a spiritual equivalent for the spirit bomb. Yeah. Trying to find a spiritual equivalent. Is that a
Star Wars reference for anyone paying attention? Anyway.
Right, basically. The force be with you.
The spirit bomb is something that happens in a book. Anyway, a Star Wars book.
I have seen books. No, seen the movies.
I've listened to the book. I never read it. See,
listen, that's the difference. Yeah, I have listened to quite a few books. Mm-hmm. That might be true.
And that's why I say I read Target Earth.
Okay.
I didn't listen to Target Earth. I read Target Earth. I have consumed the information of a lot of books, but I've only read a few. Yeah. You play video games at all, Rob?
I used to play a lot when I was a kid. I was pretty addicted, actually. When I had a Nintendo 64, and man, I would be playing that for 6 hours at a time. Like, bro, that was all I would do. And then GameCube came around, I would play that all the time. Then Nintendo Wii, PlayStation 2, and I had an Xbox 360. But then video games started to fade away in my life, probably around late high school and then early college. Stopped playing. I don't know, just lost interest in it, man. And so I think social media has a big part in that. Like, and having our phones now and being able to just be on our phones and watch videos. I don't know, but for me, I don't mind video games. I'm not really into them right now. But if somebody wanted to play something, then I'd probably just watch. But honestly, that's all I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, thinking about the video game culture again, because that's something I've studied for a little while. Because it's interesting to see the development. Because looking at the applications of historical armor and stuff, it's interesting to see a developing medium of any kind. I wasn't alive to see the beginnings of TV and how that culture began, so that we understand the references of what a television cut is and things like that, to where it just jumps to another section. Now we don't even think of it. We just think of it of changing perspective. But other people were completely surprised and thrown off by that earlier. But to see that medium develop in that way, and video games are a medium that I can actually look at and see how a cultural medium develops to have certain tropes and commonly shared ideologies. And so one of the things that I did research was League of Legends, which has a very developed system of how everything works, and everyone assumes you know that when you first start up the game, which is why it's known for having a toxic community, because when people assume you know something and it turns out you don't, they are then mad at you, because normally you lost the game because of it. Mm-hmm. That, and people don't like blaming themselves for things, but that's a different subject. Mm-hmm. I don't like blaming myself for things either, or receiving blame from others, but I don't know. Blame game is a whole rabbit trail that doesn't need to happen most of the time, I think.
I would agree.
But looking at the League of Legends community, and then looking at the Overwatch community, which just came out and is starting to head that direction, and seeing how, even though it's a different game, the community gravitates towards the same mentality in a couple of ways. And just sort of trying to figure out, as on a psychology basis, why groups of people sharing a medium disconnected from each other tend to not be accepting of each other comparably to other mediums. Like, for example, everyone loves Star Wars. When you leave a Star Wars movie that you didn't like, you don't hate everyone who went to the Star Wars movie to go see it. But when you do that in a video game, you hate everyone you went there to afterwards if it went badly or anything like that most of the time. And it's weird to see that change, and I haven't quite figured out or gotten a working theory as to why that is, but it's a cool thing to look at and study things. You can, and I know I've said this on the podcast before, I don't think I've said it every episode, but you can learn almost anything from anything. You can learn how to run a YouTube channel by watching other people do YouTube channels. And you can learn how to run a YouTube channel just by watching a game company do community management or something like that. Mm-hmm. An advertising group. You can literally watch television and just watch the ads and see what they're doing to grab people's attention. Which most of the time I don't agree with advertising methods, but like, for example, and I know this is a bit off this group audience basis, but Skinner boxing is a gaming technique very prominent on the App Store, which is have a bunch of timers in there with rewards, and people will play long enough and sink money into it. Which the Skinner box experiment was a psychological experiment on pigeons in a box with a button. When the pigeons would peck the button, food would drop into the box. And so they were trying to see if they could program an action because of a response. And because of the semi-success of that experiment, being able to get pigeons to eventually be picking at the button a lot more, that's moved into things like mobile and interactive mediums like that, to sort of trick people into thinking they're doing something productive, and just sort of sinking time into something that's worthless, which is most video games.
Essentially, yeah.
But unlike some video games, at the end of it, you actually feel like it was sort of time well spent. Like, for example, when you beat Skyrim, you don't feel like, oh man, I wasted so much time beating that. Whereas with purposeful Skinner box games, you really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's weird stuff to think about. All sorts of interesting ideas going.
As you say that, I realized that I've been Skinner box on the game on the app I've been playing recently. Like they have this like 1 hour window where like they give you rewards if you pass the level without having to repeat it. And so like I'm like, yeah, I gotta play right now. I gotta play this hour. And I was like, I've been Skinner boxed. I didn't know it was a thing, but apparently I have been Skinner boxed.
Yeah, Candy Crush is a commonly referenced.
It's like a spinoff of Candy Crush.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, again, that's mainly there just to make people spend money and be out of their hair after that, basically. And it's really seeing what some, oh my goodness, there are even, goes back to the EA thing and stuff like that with the loot boxes, but some of the interesting stuff that has happened with apps trying to get kids to spend parents' money and stuff like that, and just trick people into spending money accidentally and stuff, is all weird. Because most people have their cards just in their phone and you just press OK. And so sometimes they'll just have certain functions that you don't know you have to pay for and end up paying for accidentally. Just try to milk as much money they can out of it, and it's kind of sickening.
Yeah, that's why my card isn't attached to anything on my phone.
Well,
I can imagine paying for something in a game. They just, like, I use money for, like, real life stuff that I can use.
Instead of a bunch of diamonds.
Right, because, you know, they're nice.
Fake diamonds.
Yeah, but, like, I can't sell those diamonds to, like, a jewelry store for thousands. I can pass the level next time, I guess.
Yeah.
For $5.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's just weird to think about that. So, yeah. And I'm paying attention to the medium because I'm hoping to see the gaming medium, morph into something cool. And Extra Credits is a good channel that talks about most of this stuff. That's what I watch to get most of the information. But they're game developers. So they're more in the thick of it going, these are problems with the medium, these are cool things about the medium. They're really there going, this is all the cool stuff video games can do, like educational games that are actually engaging and stuff like that. Which is something that, unfortunately, only schools are interested in developing, and schools are cheap. And they don't like funding things for too long because schools don't get a lot of money to fund anything, even teachers.
Real.
And so the educational games that are cranked out because of the low budget that a school has to be able to crank out an educational game makes the educational games get a bad light all in all because they're not good games. Whereas if a company that were professional at developing were able to actually work on it and be passionate about teaching something in a game besides, just shooting stuff or something like that, I think you could actually have a really engaging learning medium as well in video gaming. Just for example, because there are puzzle games that you can play and you can hone skills, puzzle solving in games, but you can do that to a larger degree, I think. For example, I'm rambling, but in Coder 1, Knights of the Old Republic 1, there was a certain area that you walked through and you had to solve some math problems to unlock a door, basically. And I actually did the math because I wanted to see what was on the other side of the door. The story gave me a reason to do something that I would do in real life anyways in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think it wasn't done the greatest, but it was done well enough to make me actually do the math instead of going, oh, great math, great, look this up.
Yeah, there was a game like that we had we had the chance to get every summer. Never got it. My mom was like, "Nah, you don't need that crap." But it was like an online CD, and you got one for every grade.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been something like what you did. It was always whatever math or science or something for the next grade.
Yeah,
and,
I do have a couple of those games, and they were weird.
Okay, maybe that's why my mom never spent money on them. But I figured they would at least try to help me.
They were effective, but they didn't have the greatest story.
Yeah, sadly enough.
Yeah, but it's also encouraging to see people who aren't interested as much, because it's to me, that's an opportunity to see someone who's not interested perspective on things. So, for example, you probably know what Candy Crush is.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of it.
What do you think of the App Store in general? Because a lot of it is sort of devolved into the YouTube clickbait section. But scrolling through it, what do you see in most of those games and stuff that show up from time to time?
I'm not totally sure. I'm kind of tuned out, honestly, with that stuff. But I know that people play it. And I know that people... I don't even know what Candy Crush is about, honestly.
It's about crushing candy.
Okay, cool.
That's it. It's a Skinner box game. It doesn't have to have a story.
Sure.
They don't need one. That's true.
Hey, if it builds community and people are willing to, hang out with each other and play Candy Crush, cool.
Yeah.
To me, it's not really my my float. I'm not really into all that, and I don't know, just never really picked up an interest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even I don't really even scroll through the App Store. If I go through the App Store, it'll probably just be research something and an app that I heard about, and I just search that up and download it. But
I feel like that's a healthy use of the App Store.
Yeah. I don't really search for games or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only games I'm really playing, at least app-wise, are games that I'm studying.
Okay.
For example, I'm playing 2 games right now, which is Star Wars Force Arena, because I like Star Wars, and because it's an interesting mobile app, because it's very reminiscent of League of Legends. And so I'm studying the community around that game, because the community isn't as developed as the League of Legends community. So anything goes for the most part in that community. Because there's no established system of anything.
Sure.
Everything's trial and error for the most part. Which is why I'm looking to see how that community is functioning, and seeing if that's going to begin to tip the same way or not, to see if that curve through interactive games continues. And then the other game I'm playing is Fire Emblem Heroes, which is a game that is a free-to-play game like a lot of other games, but it's not a Skinner box game, but it's still making money. And so I'm studying the model that they're using to make money, but not be pounding people over the head to spend money. Yeah. Like games like Candy Crush, where they're saying for $5 you can pass the thing. Because all you pay into for that game is just buying stuff to be able to get more characters. Mm-hmm. And not even specific characters, it's just you use orbs to summon characters that you can fight with later. And all the paying stuff in that game is just buy orbs. That's it. And so it's cool to see how it's balanced, too. It's not a pay-to-win game, like a lot of people reference. And it's actually a successful game, too. Mainly because it plays off of the Fire Emblem stuff, and a lot of people like the characters. But it's cool to see how they're making the model work correctly. And those are the 2 games that I'm studying, just to sort of stay up to date a little bit on how that medium's developing. Because, I'm not into the medium per se. I'm into watching it develop. It's sort of like planting a tree or something and just watching it grow over time and seeing how it does different things depending on what happens externally and internally. Like, for example, seeing how a tree grows after you cut off a branch to see where another one comes out, or if stuff starts growing out of the severed area, or stuff like that. Just see the development as it comes early. But yeah, ended up talking about games again. That was nice. Thank you, Rob. I feel like I did most of the talking. I feel really bad about that, but
It's all good, man.
I'm happy I could have both of you. I'm happy you showed up. I'm happy that people are interested in this, and I'm happy to continue doing this every month.
Yeah, man.
Just start doing new stuff. Yeah. After this, just as a community update, I'm hoping to get, because we've done a lot of like college students and around the same age group people. So I'm hoping to go. Next episode, I'm hoping to get like a generational split to see how that works a little bit.
Cool. Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get like someone from the youth group and their parent or something like that. Just so I can do a podcast with a varying range of audiences to see how that goes and just sort of talk about things, because it's people, just seeing what people think about things.
That would be dope. Yeah, to see the evolution. Like,
Yeah.
are you talking about like just how TV's evolved?
Yeah.
Yeah, this evolution of like generations.
Yeah. Well, and see how perspective is different between a different question.
True.
Like, for example, talking about Instagram to someone who's 60 compared to someone who's 6.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, very different. Very different.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you all for listening to this. And next time you're talking with somebody, I hope that you listen to them. Make sure you are engaged in conversation, because talking with people is more important than standing with them looking at a phone. But thank you. And until the next episode, Katie, I hope you don't hate me too much, but don't be stupid or make bad decisions. Katie Gregoire is a person who has that same outro, so I'm sorry for stealing that this time, but I felt it was appropriate. But bye-bye. How is it changed? Did it change it? Is it changed from here? Is this better? There's a new track. What if we adjust this? Do I just become more apparent in the mic or no? Okay, put that at 15 for now. Alrighty.